My life changed dramatically 3 years ago due to a false accusation about a smart home system installation. I'm James, 26, working as an IT project manager now. But back then, I was just starting my career. I grew up in a suburban area of Ohio with my parents, Michael, a 55-year-old university professor, and Carol, a 53-year-old physician, and my sister Sarah, 29, who works at an investment bank. Our home was a modest, two-story house in a quiet neighborhood, purchased by my parents early in their marriage. While it wasn't luxurious, it had everything we needed, including a recently installed smart home system that my father was particularly proud of. My parents, though not wealthy by most standards, provided us with a comfortable life and emphasized the importance of education and technological literacy. Growing up, Sarah and I were quite close. We spent countless hours in our backyard, climbing trees, and creating elaborate games that often involved pretend coding and virtual worlds. She naturally took the lead, establishing the rules and storylines, while I was content following along, more interested in figuring out how things work than being in charge. However, as we grew older, our paths began to diverge significantly. Sarah had always been the overachiever. She excelled academically, led multiple tech clubs, and seemed to succeed effortlessly in everything she attempted. In contrast, I took a more laid-back approach. I performed adequately in school, but lacked her intense drive for traditional success. By the time she left for college, we had grown apart considerably. She attended a prestigious university on a full scholarship, while I stayed local, taking computer science courses at a community college to figure out my path. After graduating, Sarah moved to New York and secured a position at a top investment bank. She would return home during holidays, full of stories about her high-stakes career and sophisticated city life. I couldn't help feeling overshadowed, especially since I was still living at home, working on freelance coding projects while studying. Despite our different trajectories, I thought we maintained a decent relationship. We weren't as close as in childhood, but I assumed that was just part of growing up. I had no idea how quickly everything would fall apart over a piece of smart home technology. The engagement. 3 years ago, Sarah and her boyfriend Tom, a 31-year-old tech startup founder, got engaged after dating for 2 years. Everyone was thrilled, especially my parents, who were impressed by Tom's success in the tech industry. He proposed with an expensive smart ring that could display messages and track health metrics, a cutting-edge piece of technology from his company's new product line. Sarah couldn't stop showing off its features to everyone. The engagement party was an extravagant affair at our house. My parents invited what seemed like the entire tech community from the area. I felt out of place among Sarah's sophisticated colleagues and Tom's startup friends, with their discussions about Series A funding and market valuations. I stayed close to my old high school friends who were still in town, feeling more comfortable with them than Sarah's tech elite circle. A month after the engagement, everything imploded. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was working from home on a coding project. Sarah was visiting for the week, taking time off to plan the wedding with our mother. I heard them return from a meeting with the wedding planner, their voices drifting up from downstairs. I stayed focused on my work until I heard Sarah scream. When I rushed downstairs, Sarah immediately accused me of damaging her smart ring while trying to examine its internal components. She claimed she had removed it while setting up a new smart home feature in the kitchen, and when she returned, she found it partially disassembled. I was stunned and denied touching it, but Sarah wouldn't listen. She kept screaming that I was the only other tech-savvy person in the house, so it must have been me. She accused me of being jealous of her success and suggested I wanted to reverse engineer the ring's technology for my own projects. Our parents arrived home during the chaos, and Sarah presented her version of events. To my horror, they immediately sided with her. My mother broke down crying, asking how I could sabotage my sister's happiness. My father just stared at me with disappointment, his pride in my technical abilities now turned to suspicion. They searched my room and found my collection of electronic components and repair tools. Sarah pointed to these as evidence, claiming I must have used them to tamper with the ring. I tried explaining these were just for my personal projects and study, but no one would listen. The aftermath. The next few days were a nightmare. My parents and Sarah constantly pressured me to confess to tampering with the ring. They threatened to report me to Tom's company for attempted corporate espionage if I didn't come clean. I felt completely isolated. None of my tech industry contacts wanted to get involved in what could become a legal issue. After a week of relentless accusations, my parents made their decision. They told me I had to leave, saying they couldn't trust someone who would sabotage their own sister's engagement and potentially harm a tech startup's intellectual property. They gave me 48 hours to pack up and go. My former Army buddy Ryan, now working in cybersecurity, offered his couch temporarily. I packed what I could into 2 bags: clothes, my laptop, some electronics tools, and a few photos from happier times. As I left, I caught Sarah watching from her window. For a moment, I thought I saw doubt in her expression, but she quickly turned away. Walking out of my childhood home, knowing I was being exiled over a false accusation, was crushing. Starting over. The next 2 months were spent between Ryan's couch and budget hotels. I took whatever tech support jobs I could find through online platforms. Eventually, I landed a position at a software development company on the outskirts of town. The work was challenging, the hours long, but it provided steady income. I rented a small room in a house shared with other tech workers and slowly began rebuilding my life. At night, I'd lie awake debugging code and replaying events in my mind. How could my family, especially Sarah, who had shared my passion for technology since childhood, believe I would destroy something so important? I cut off all communication. They tried reaching out. My mother's voicemails about making things right. My father's texts about discussing the situation professionally. Sarah showing up at my workplace once. I couldn't face them after what they'd done. 3 years later. For 3 years, I built a new life. I made friends at work and in the tech community. After my shift supervisor promotion, I started taking online courses in software engineering. My career was progressing, but the wound from my family's betrayal remained raw. The holiday seasons were particularly difficult. Seeing families shopping for the latest gadgets or sharing photos of their smart home Christmas decorations would trigger memories of what I'd lost. Then last week, an unexpected email arrived from my father. The subject line read, "System error discovered." The message was brief, stating they needed to meet about the ring incident. Initially, I almost deleted it like their previous attempts to contact me. But something in the technical language made me pause. After hours of internal debate, I called my father. What he told me left me stunned. The ring hadn't been tampered with. It had malfunctioned due to a software bug in the prototype's operating system. Sarah only realized this when similar issues were reported in other test units. My father said they all felt terrible about wrongly accusing me. Sarah was devastated when she understood the truth. The aftermath. I hung up the phone, overwhelmed with emotions. While vindicated by the technical evidence, I was angry. 3 years of my life lost because they couldn't trust my technical expertise or integrity. The irony that a software bug had caused both the malfunction and the eventual revelation wasn't lost on me. Now I face a dilemma. My family wants to reconnect. They say they want to make amends. Sarah keeps sending messages about collaborating on tech projects, asking for forgiveness, but I'm uncertain. They cast me out based on assumptions about my character and technical abilities. leaving me to rebuild my life alone. Part of me wants to permanently delete them from my system, while another part misses the family debugging sessions and shared excitement over new technology. 1 week later, I agreed to meet my family at a quiet coffee shop in a neighboring tech hub. Arriving early, I chose a corner table with my laptop as a familiar comfort. When they walked in, the sight hit me harder than any system crash. My mother had aged visibly. My father looked worn down, and Sarah seemed to have lost her usual confident demeanor. They spoke simultaneously, apologies tumbling out. My parents admitted they'd failed by not conducting proper due diligence before accusations. My father, who prided himself on logical analysis, confessed he'd let emotions override his technical judgment. My mother revealed she'd kept my room untouched, even maintaining my old workstation. Sarah broke down, explaining how the pressure of delivering the prototype ring had clouded her judgment. She confessed to always admiring my intuitive understanding of technology, despite her academic achievements. The revelation about the software bug had shattered her self-image as the infallible technical expert. Moving forward, after careful consideration, I made my decision. I called my parents to establish clear boundaries. While appreciating their apology, I wasn't ready for full system restoration. I agreed to minimal contact, weekly debug sessions, as my mother called our phone calls. For Sarah, I needed more time. Her actions had corrupted our relationship's source code the most. I explained I needed space before considering any collaboration. She accepted, promising to wait until I was ready to review her pull request for reconciliation. Epilogue. 6 months later, I accepted a senior development position with a major tech company in another city. It's a significant upgrade, better salary, comprehensive benefits, and exciting projects. When I told my family, their reactions were mixed but respectful of my independence. Our relationship is rebooting slowly. Trust is still a work in progress, like beta testing a critical system. While I'll never forget the incident, I'm working on refactoring our family dynamics. Sometimes the best programs come from debugging the worst crashes.